I never expected my peaceful suburban life to be shattered by the jealousy and entitlement of my own sister. As the tension mounted, Karen demanded that I leave my girlfriend because she was hotter than her. Little did I know this would be the catalyst for a series of events that would test my loyalty, love, and the strength of family bonds. Here's how it all went down. I was enjoying a peaceful afternoon in my suburban neighborhood, the warm sun casting a golden glow on the neatly manicured lawns and quiet streets. As a 25-year-old man, life had been relatively smooth sailing for me, until my sister Karen decided to stir up some trouble. Before the chaos ensued, I had been going about my day, minding my own business. Little did I know that Karen was about to drop a bombshell that would disrupt the tranquility of my world. As I relaxed in my backyard, sipping on a refreshing drink, Karen approached me with a mischievous glint in her eyes. "You should break up with Sarah," she said, her voice tinged with envy. "She's way hotter than me, and it's just not fair." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Looks weren't everything in a relationship, and I had always believed in the importance of genuine connection and compatibility. How could Karen be so shallow? "Karen, that's ridiculous," I exclaimed, trying to reason with her. "Sarah and I have something special. It's not about physical appearance, it's about love and understanding." But Karen wouldn't let it go. She played the sister card, demanding that I prioritize her feelings over everything else. I loved my sister, but this was too much. "Karen, I love Sarah," I asserted, my voice firm. "I won't leave her just because you're jealous. This isn't about you, it's about me, and the person who makes me truly happy." As our argument reached its peak, Karen's entitlement escalated. She believed she deserved more attention from me than Sarah, simply because she was my sister. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Karen, it's not about looks," I emphasized, my frustration evident. "It's about the deep emotional connection I share with Sarah. She understands me in ways you can't comprehend." The tension lingered in the air as our conversation came to an end. Karen warned me that I would regret choosing Sarah over my own sister, but I refused to let her entitlement dictate my choices. I wasn't going to sacrifice my happiness for the sake of appeasing her insecurities. In the end, Karen's unreasonable demands and sense of entitlement were proven wrong. I stood up for my relationship, choosing love and authenticity over superficial comparisons. It was a powerful reminder that true connections should never be compromised for the sake of someone else's envy or demands. As our argument continued, Karen's jealousy and entitlement seeped into every word she spoke. She couldn't fathom that I would choose Sarah, my girlfriend, over her demands for attention and validation. "Enough is enough, Karen," I exclaimed, my voice filled with determination. "I won't let your envy destroy what Sarah and I have built together." Karen's eyes narrowed, her face flushed with anger. "You think you're so special, don't you? Choosing her, the hotter one, over your own sister. You're making a big mistake." I took a deep breath, trying to contain my emotions. "This isn't about looks, Karen. It's about love, respect, and compatibility. Sarah is my partner in every sense of the word. She supports and challenges me, and I can't imagine my life without her." Karen scoffed, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Oh, please, what does she have that I don't? I deserve more attention than her." I looked at Karen, searching for any sign of understanding. "It's not a competition, Karen. I love Sarah for who she is, not just her appearance. She brings joy, understanding, and happiness into my life. Can't you see that?" Karen's face twisted with anger and disappointment. "You're blinded by your infatuation for her. You'll regret choosing her over me, your own sister." I shook my head, refusing to let her manipulative words sway me. "No, Karen, I won't regret it. I choose happiness and authenticity. Sarah accepts me for who I am, and she makes me a better person. I won't sacrifice that for anyone." Karen's eyes welled up with tears, her voice trembling. "You're throwing away our bond, our family, for some fleeting romance?" As our argument reached its boiling point, Karen's entitled demands and jealousy became unbearable. She insisted that I should prioritize her over my girlfriend solely based on superficial comparisons. But I couldn't let her dictate my choices when it came to matters of the heart. "Karen, it's not about looks," I stated firmly, trying to make her understand. "Sarah and I share a deep emotional connection. It's about love and compatibility, not just physical appearance." Karen's face twisted with anger and frustration. "But I'm your sister. You should be with someone less attractive, someone who won't overshadow me." I took a deep breath, trying to maintain my composure, despite the mounting tension. "Karen, this isn't a competition. My relationship with Sarah isn't about comparison or trying to please others. It's about finding happiness and fulfillment with someone who truly understands and supports me." Karen's voice became more desperate as she continued to make unreasonable demands. "You owe it to me to choose someone who won't make me feel inferior, someone who won't steal the spotlight from me." I felt a mixture of sadness and disappointment. "Karen, I can't base my decisions on your insecurities. Sarah makes me happy in ways you can't comprehend. It's not about prioritizing one person over another. It's about choosing the person who brings genuine joy and fulfillment into my life." Karen's eyes welled up with tears, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and sadness. "You're throwing away our bond, our family, for the sake of your relationship? How could you?" I reached out to her, hoping she would understand. "Karen, our bond as siblings should be strong enough to withstand this. But I can't sacrifice my own happiness for the sake of appeasing your insecurities. I hope one day you'll come to accept and respect my choice." As I finished speaking, a heavy silence hung in the air. The weight of our confrontation lingered, and I couldn't predict what the future held for Karen and me. But I knew deep down that I had made the right decision for my own well-being and for the love I shared with Sarah. As the tension between Karen and me began to subside, a heavy silence filled the air. It was clear that our argument had reached its peak, and both of us needed time to cool down and reflect on the situation. The weight of Karen's entitlement and jealousy still lingered, but I remained determined to stand my ground and protect my relationship with Sarah. Days turned into weeks, and the strained relationship between Karen and me persisted. We were civil, but distant. Our conversations limited to basic pleasantries. I could sense the disappointment and hurt in Karen's eyes whenever we crossed paths. It pained me to see the rift between us, but I knew that prioritizing my own happiness was necessary. In an attempt to bridge the gap, I reached out to Karen one evening. "Karen, I know things have been tense between us, but I want you to understand that my relationship with Sarah is important to me," I began, my voice filled with sincerity. "It's not about choosing her over you, it's about finding love and fulfillment in my own life." Karen looked at me, her eyes expressing a mix of sadness and resignation. "I know, but it's hard for me to accept. I thought we were always there for each other, no matter what," she replied, her voice filled with vulnerability. I sighed, realizing the impact our argument had on Karen. "We still can be there for each other, Karen, but I can't let someone else dictate my choices or undermine the love I have found with Sarah. Our bond as siblings should be strong enough to withstand this." Tears welled up in Karen's eyes as she nodded slowly. "I suppose you're right. I was blinded by my own insecurities and couldn't see beyond my jealousy. I'm sorry for trying to undermine your happiness." I reached out and gently placed my hand on Karen's shoulder. "Thank you for understanding. I want us to rebuild our relationship, but it will take time and effort from both of us. Can we work on healing and moving forward?" Karen wiped away her tears and gave me a small smile. "Yes, let's try. I miss having my brother as my confidant and partner in crime." Relief washed over me, and I couldn't help but feel hopeful for the future. "I miss that too, Karen. We might have our differences, but family is important to me. Let's rebuild our bond and support each other, even if it means accepting the choices we make." And so, Karen and I began the process of rebuilding our relationship. It wasn't easy, and there were still moments of tension and discomfort. But as time went on, we rediscovered the strength of our bond and the importance of unconditional love. Months passed, and Karen slowly came to accept Sarah as a part of our family. She even reached out to Sarah, offering an olive branch and expressing her desire to move forward. It was a significant moment of growth for both Karen and me. As I reflect on the events that transpired, I realized that the conflict with Karen ultimately strengthened my relationship with Sarah. We learned to communicate more openly, supporting each other through the challenges that life threw our way. Our love grew deeper and more resilient, and we became even more committed to building a future together. Wow, what a crazy story. Can't believe someone would actually demand their sibling break up with their girlfriend just because she's hotter. Love should never be based on looks alone. Kudos to the protagonist for standing up for their relationship and choosing happiness over superficial comparisons. I never expected my brother to propose to my fiancée, his ex-girlfriend, but that's exactly what happened. The chaos that ensued left me angry and unsure about our future. Here's how it all went down. Jen and I met at a bar in October when I moved back, and we clicked immediately. She is the most beautiful and intelligent woman I've ever met. We started dating and eventually became official. In December, I introduced her to my family during Christmas, but I didn't share many details about her until I was sure about our relationship. During the introduction, my parents asked to see pictures of Jen. Mark, my brother, saw them and became angry, calling me a jerk for dating his ex-girlfriend. He demanded, "End the relationship," but I refused. I confronted Jen about it, and she confirmed their past relationship and explained the circumstances of their breakup. Jen said, "We dated in the past, but we broke up because he lost interest." Eventually, Mark stopped bringing up the issue, and I thought he had moved on. On Jen's birthday this year, I took her out for a fancy dinner with our families and close friends and proposed to her. Once again, Mark became furious about the proposal, but my sisters and I shut down his objections. However, the real storm was yet to come. During a seemingly normal family dinner hosted by Mark, an oppressive tension suddenly descended upon the room as Mark stood, clinking his glass for attention. "I have something to say," Mark began, his face oddly intense and his voice trembling slightly. His eyes locked onto Jen, and everyone followed his gaze, feeling the electricity in the air. He pulled out a ring, a cheap imitation that seemed to mock the solemnity of the moment, and dropped to one knee before her. The room froze, suspended in a moment of complete surrealism. "Jen," Mark's voice broke, a dangerous edge of desperation and perhaps something deeper weaving through his tone. "I know this is unconventional to say the least." He swallowed hard, the room so silent you could hear the distress pulsating in his throat. "But I never got over you, and seeing you with him," he spat, pointing a trembling finger at me, "it's tearing me apart." Jen's face had morphed into a visage of shock and discomfort, her eyes darting between Mark and me, her hand instinctively clutching at her necklace. Her voice came out in a horrified whisper, as if afraid to escalate the spiraling situation. "Mark, this isn't right. Please, don't do this." The room burst into chaos, with people rising from their seats, voices overlapping in a crescendo of disbelief, anger, and shock. I felt a ferocious heat bloom in my chest, consuming my rationality, blinding me with rage as I strode towards Mark, who was now standing, his face red, tears welling in his eyes, defiant yet broken. "You think this is some kind of joke, Mark? Playing with people's feelings for your pathetic drama?" I yelled, my voice echoing violently in the room, punctuating the gravity of the betrayal. "You wouldn't understand because you stole her from me. You don't deserve her." Mark shot back, his voice breaking, tears spilling from his eyes. The air grew dense with unspoken resentments, deep wounds laid bare for all to see. In the heat of the moment, blinded by rage and heartache, I swung at him, landing a punch on his face. The sickening thud of flesh meeting flesh reverberated through the room. The gasps of our family were drowned out by Mark's malicious, hurtful accusation as he recovered, pointing at Jen with a vindictive glare. "Admit it, Jen," he screamed, his face red and distorted with anger and pain. "You're only with him to get back at me, to make me jealous. It's always been about me, hasn't it?" Jen, pale and shaken, voice trembling but firm, rejected his claims, the hurt evident in her eyes. "Mark, I loved you once, but that was a long time ago. I'm with him because I love him, not because of some sick revenge plot you've concocted in your head." It was an ugly, painful scene, an explosion of suppressed emotions, insecurities, and bitter resentments that shook our family to its core, laying bare the depths of Mark's delusions and the fractured bond between us as brothers. My parents quickly intervened and escorted me out of the situation. They promised to talk to Mark later. It's been a few days since the incident, and I'm still angry and unsure about what to do next. I worry that Jen might have doubts about marrying me because of Mark's behavior. In addition to the events described, it is important to note that when we first met, I approached Jen without any knowledge of her past relationship with my brother Mark. It was only later that I discovered their brief history. At that time, Mark and I had already grown apart, and our bond was not close. Jen, on the other hand, had limited information about my family until I felt ready to introduce her. When she and Mark encountered each other again, there were no apparent lingering emotions between them. Given the circumstances of their past relationship, I did not feel the need to seek permission from Mark when I proposed to Jen. However, in light of the intense reaction from Mark, I now question whether I should have approached the situation differently. I called Mark and invited him to my place to talk. I suggested that Jen be present for the conversation, but I respected his decision if he preferred not to have her there. He agreed to talk with both of us and arrived at my place around noon. After a few minutes of silence, I initiated the conversation. I apologized to Mark, saying, "I'm sorry for not informing you about my plans to propose to Jen and for physically confronting you." He accepted the apology, saying it was whatever, but appreciated the gesture. I shared the details of Jen's account of their past relationship and breakup, seeking confirmation from Mark. I wanted to ensure that I wasn't misunderstanding the seriousness of their relationship or downplaying any emotional attachment they may have had. Mark confirmed, "We only dated for a few weeks, and I ended things because I lost interest." Jen asked if his current behavior stemmed from lingering feelings or regrets about their breakup. He admitted that he found her more attractive now than before, but denied having any feelings or regrets. He explained that he didn't like seeing someone he had dated, even briefly, with his older brother. He believed that I shouldn't have pursued a relationship with his ex-girlfriend. He insisted that if the roles were reversed, he would have done the same, although I doubted his claim. I questioned his motivation for proposing to Jen if he had no lingering feelings. In summary, he mentioned discussing their past relationship with a friend who suggested that Jen may have known about our family connection from the beginning and was using me to get back at Mark. To test this theory, Mark decided to propose and see if Jen would choose him over me. Jen asked him directly, "Why do you think I'm still hung up on you?" Mark said, "I heard that you had asked about me after our breakup and continued to visit places we used to go to. I consider these actions as signs of unresolved feelings. Jen clarified that she only asked about him once out of curiosity following the breakup and that she frequented those places with friends even before we started dating. She expressed offense at the idea that she would stoop so low as to pursue me in order to seek revenge. Mark half-heartedly apologized, but insisted that she understand his perspective. Mark turned to Jen, his brows furrowed in confusion, and asked, "Did you genuinely not know about our family connection?" Jen shook her head, her voice steady as she explained, "I didn't notice the resemblance until we were all in the same room together. You two have quite different personalities, so the thought never crossed my mind." I assured him that he needn't worry about attending the wedding, as he would most likely be uninvited anyway. A few hours have passed since our conversation, and I feel somewhat relieved. Although my parents aren't pleased about uninviting Mark, they understand that it was a mutual decision and likely for the best. My sisters assured me that they knew Mark didn't have a valid reason for his behavior, and that they don't blame me for not wanting him at the wedding. For now, I plan to limit contact with Mark, and I don't anticipate him reaching out to me anytime soon. Mark nodded, seeming to accept her response. After a few moments of silence that felt heavier with each passing second, he finally broke it, his voice strained. "You can rescind my invitation to the wedding. I can't bring myself to support this relationship knowing I used to date Jen." Mark's insecurity and immaturity manifested in a reckless act, rooted in suspicions and misguided advice, almost shattering bonds and fostering grave misunderstandings. As the couple moves forward, nurturing their relationship and building a future together, it remains to be seen whether time can heal the wounds inflicted and eventually mend the broken familial bonds, guided by understanding, forgiveness, and a mutual respect for each other's autonomy and personal history. I never imagined that refusing to let my parents put a tracker on my phone would lead to such dire consequences. Little did I know that their concern for my safety would turn into a toxic game of control and manipulation. As tensions rise and punishments are dealt, I must navigate my way through this suffocating web of surveillance and find a way to reclaim my independence. Here's how it all went down. I am a 28-year-old female who finds herself in a situation where life has not unfolded as planned. Currently, I still reside with my parents, who exhibit an excessive level of control over my life. The absence of my friends, who have all relocated overseas, has left me with a considerable amount of alone time. My daily routine primarily consists of being at home, going to work, and occasionally embarking on solitary walks. I no longer partake in activities such as drinking, going to the gym, or participating in sports. Additionally, my social life has been stagnant for the past 7 years, resulting in what some might perceive as an uninteresting existence. Despite these circumstances, I find solace and tranquility in immersing myself in nature and exploring the outdoors through walking. My parents have expressed their unhappiness with my decision to go on walks by myself, as they believe it is dangerous for women to do so. While I understand their concerns, I unfortunately don't have anyone to accompany me on these walks, which would help alleviate their worries. I recognize that having a walking partner would provide an extra layer of safety and reassurance, but the reality is that I currently don't have that option available to me. I have been resisting my mom's persistent requests to enable the Share My Location feature on my phone for years. She insists that it is for my safety, but I cannot shake off the feeling that it goes beyond just that. You see, my parents share their locations with each other, and my mom has developed a habit of constantly monitoring my dad's whereabouts. It has become almost like a daily commentary for her, as she would note out loud, "Oh, your father just left the tennis court," or "He has arrived at work now," and even, "He is leaving the pub." This relentless tracking has made me value my privacy even more. And although I have nothing to hide, I'm determined to maintain this boundary. It is a stand that I am proud to uphold, as I refuse to become a subject of her tracking obsession. Today, I decided to take a trip up the coast and go for a walk along the sea, I explained to my parents at around 10:30 a.m. My mom asked me to keep in touch, so once I arrived at the coast around 2 p.m., I called her and said, "Mom, I'm at the coast now. I'll be taking a walk along the sea. I'll let you know if anything changes." I didn't mention when I would be returning home, but she didn't ask either. I also didn't send a message to let her know I was on my way back. To my utter astonishment and disbelief, when I finally returned home at 8 p.m., I was met with a level of fury from my parents that I had never witnessed before. My dad, his face contorted with anger, forcefully declared, "You no longer have the right to have an opinion in this matter. It is now an absolute requirement for you to have a tracker on your phone." Stunned by his uncompromising stance, I mustered the courage to defend myself, saying, "I complied with your every demand. I diligently called and meticulously explained my whereabouts. If you had genuine concerns about my safety, you could have easily reached out to me. Is this how you choose to treat me for simply asserting my independence? To make matters worse, they used a tactic that felt like emotional blackmail aimed at stripping away my independence. My dad, with a vindictive glint in his eyes, coldly reminded me, "Since the car you drive is technically mine, I'm taking the keys away. Either buy your own car or grant us access to your tracking information." The fact that they had bought the car became a weapon they wielded against me, adding insult to injury. The timing of this ultimatum couldn't have been more cruel. I am currently in the final stages of a highly competitive graduate recruitment process, with the possibility of moving to London in September. However, the period between now and then is critical, and I rely on the car for my day-to-day survival. Without it, the already limited life I have would become utterly impossible. This turn of events has plunged me deeper into the suffocating abyss of control and manipulation imposed by my parents. It feels as though my every choice, every decision is being scrutinized and dictated by their iron grip. The sense of helplessness and despair has become overwhelming, and I find myself desperately yearning for a way to break free from their dominance. This situation has been incredibly challenging and has made me question the boundaries my parents have set. It feels like a suffocating web of control and manipulation. So, am I the jerk for refusing to let them put a tracker on my phone when their concern is my safety? As tensions rise and punishments are dealt, I must navigate my way through this suffocating web of surveillance and find a way to reclaim my independence. In the midst of this toxic game of control and manipulation, I found solace in sharing my struggles with a supportive community. They offered advice and asked probing questions that shed light on the unhealthy dynamic with my parents. "I completely understand what you're going through," one person acknowledged. "It sounds like your parents' behavior is toxic, but sometimes we have to endure it until we can escape." Another person asked if I could rely on public transportation instead, but I explained that the system in my area is not reliable and would significantly delay my commute. "I do pay a nominal amount to live with my parents," I shared, "but I still feel guilty that it's not enough." The supportive community offered valuable insights and advice, shedding light on the unhealthy dynamic with my parents. In response to a question about my dad's awareness of my mom's stalking behavior, I confirmed that he knew but didn't seem bothered by it. When asked if my parents paid for my phone, I clarified that they didn't, although the car I used was technically theirs due to a previous car failure. These additional details paint a clearer picture of the complex situation I found myself in, as I strive to maintain my independence and privacy amidst their control. Things were very tense the next couple of days. My mom eventually came to me and said that she was going to address the elephant in the room. "I'm very disappointed in you," she told me, clearly upset. "But since you don't seem to care about my concerns, I'll just have to live without the tracker on your phone." I could sense that she expected me to give in, to change my mind, but I stood my ground and simply replied, "Thank you for understanding." And that was the end of it. The car keys were returned to the drawer, and surprisingly, no one, including my dad, mentioned the tracker again. To this day, I still don't know why there was such a sudden change in attitude. Although you all helped me realize that I have an unhealthy, codependent relationship with my parents, I think it will just take time to establish boundaries and learn how to be my own person. I still love them a lot, and I know they love me too, even though we aren't the type of family that says so. Which leads me to my other news. I got the job in London! I have officially moved out, and am living there now. It still feels surreal. I know it is going to take some time to get used to living independently, but I am ready to be my own person and learn how to do things on my own. Honestly, I had given up hope that this day would ever come. I feel so much happier and can genuinely say I am proud of myself. If anyone has any tips for living away from home for the first time, please let me know. Yeah, it's definitely unsettling to think about parents putting trackers on their children's devices and vehicles. It's a clear sign of excessive control and a lack of trust. It's important for parents to strike a balance between ensuring their children's safety and respecting their privacy and independence. Trust is a vital component of any healthy relationship, and constantly monitoring someone's every move can be suffocating. OP's story highlights the challenges of navigating such a situation and the importance of setting boundaries. It's great to see that OP was able to break free and start living life on their own terms. If you enjoyed today's stories, check out the other videos on your screen now. Submit your own stories at you'rethejerk.com. Subscribe now or you're definitely the jerk.